everybody. Welcome to another episode of Geek Studios Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have John Avina. Now, is it Avina or Avina?
Avinia.
Avina. There you go. So John Avina, and we also have he likes to consider himself the fan favorite. We have Mr. Man Spider.
I don't like to consider myself the fans that's spoken for me. Of course, I'm the fan favorite because everybody likes chocolate.
I guess. I mean, I can't have any right now. I'm on a diet, so yeah. Like I went to a doctor and they told me something that I already knew, right? That I was fat. So they told me they're like, you know what, you gotta lose weight. But besides that, I had high everything except sugar, right? Like everything was high, like cholesterol. I don't some stuff I can't pronounce because I just don't know how to pronounce it. And my blood pressure was high. So from there, they're like, you know what? Two choices. Either you got a medication or you lose weight and you gotta change your diet. So I am on week 1.5 of no coffee, and I've been a coffee fiend.
Like
So
four to 10 cups of coffee a day.
I
So
wouldn't
to
say
go this,
10, but
you were
it
aggressive
was
with
around
your
4 cups of coffee. Yeah, I won't
That's
lie.
the boat I'm in now.
coffee.
4 cups of coffee a day?
Yeah, I'm a funeral director, so
Okay.
they're long days.
Yeah. Oh man.
I can imagine long days filled with lots of emotions.
Yeah, yeah, especially in that line of work. But yeah, so we got John Aviña. So we're gonna talk a little bit about hold on. Before anything. So we do have I did make a little promo thing and I forgot to add it because Ernest never reminds me, but here we
Did
go.
I not just ask right before this? Does he have everything in line?
So we got John Aviña from
Woo-woo.
Aviña Comics. There you go. See? This is what sucks when you're the only person that controls everything. That if I forget and then I got Ernest yelling at me like, "Hey, dude, you forgot to put the outro. You forgot to do this." I'm like, "Oh my god, I gotta
Yeah,
give
then
you
I got to go
access."
back in
Because
editing and do it.
yeah, but so John, now a little bit of background of how I found your comics. Um, I was on Instagram and I saw a post. So we're kind of we became very big fans of indie comics. It started maybe about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Like before, it used to be all like Marvel, DC, uh, Image, Dark Horse, all that kind of stuff, right? But from there, we started going to local conventions. We started meeting a lot of folks, and then it's like, hey, I got this book, so we read it. We're like, oh, there's a lot of talent, and just because it's not like a big brand, doesn't mean it's not a good book, right? So from there, we started getting more and more into indie comics. So I happened to stumble upon your book, and it's the very first book that we actually did, which was Lockjaw Pistolero. This is the first book I stumbled across on Instagram. So from here, I ordered it, which, by the way, thank you for personalizing it. I forgot to say to Geek Studios, Miguel, aka the best. But we'll get that worked out, John.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the first book from you guys that I see now. Did you write? Did you illustrate or did you do any of the ink work?
So I'm the writer and creator of it. I have a team that I do with all my books, so I have different artists that I work with.
Mhm.
So that one was by Medson Lima. He's
Yeah.
the artist and the inker. And then we have Julio Santos that did the coloring, and then Spacely X is our letterer.
Okay. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
I gotta say, it is amazing, and props to everybody that did the drawings and did the illustrations because they just go so well with the story, and I feel like it blends perfectly, and it's to the point that like, so I did fall a little bit in love with the villain of the story,
Yeah.
so I did have to buy it in a bigger size because so you can't see it, but like right here I post like different artwork from different artists. So from there it's like, oh, like this one will go up there. But yeah, I was like, very great job, very great
Awesome.
job. But
Thank you.
So now going back. So what got you into making comics, or like how did you come across that idea of like, you know what, I want to create my own comics?
So I originally went to school for like filmmaking.
Okay.
So I learned like storytelling and script writing and all that kind of structure stuff from there. And I would make like shorts and stuff with my friends. So that was always like a big help. And then graduating, we were taking like PA jobs, not really getting anywhere. So I started shooting like weddings and odd jobs and all that. And then right when the pandemic hit, like Scott Snyder started teaching us like a class on writing for
Mm.
comics.
Oh.
And I just kind of jumped into it. I was like, all right, well, like I have these scripts, I have these ideas, like it's time to make something with it, like just try. And my son was born in October of 2020.
Mhm.
So it was just kind of like, well, do I want him to think of me as like the guy that just goes to work, comes home and doesn't like I want him to be creative too, because mom was a mariachi singer.
Oh,
And then
okay.
yeah, and then she stopped doing that because she had kids, work like life got in the way. So I was like, well, that would be me again. So I was like, well, time to break that cycle a little bit. And I jumped right into it. And luckily, I found Medicine through Instagram and I sent him the script and I was like, I have 5 issues written, like, and I really want to make it. And he was like, all right, like, I like it. Let's make it. So we went through some like design stuff with another guy that I went to Scott's class with. Like, I just met him through that like Discord server that they have. And it worked out. Like, I got the images back right away. I sent him to Medicine. We worked on like paneling and all that stuff together. So we learned together like how to make the book work. And now it's just he'll send me a page. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. So cool. And now like we're halfway through book 2, but this year alone we have 4 Lockjaw shorts that came out,
Yeah.
and then we have 2 more coming out right around the time issue 2 comes out in August.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Now, so where do you like? I can see where you got the some of the ideas for
Yeah.
Lockjaw and Pistolero, but one of my favorite parts is the fact that you it's like so like I'm Mexican and I appreciate any book that has Mexican culture, Mexican references in it because it's rare, and the ones that are out there sometimes is just they're not the best ones, right? So
Yeah.
I that's one of the big draws for me that this book had. But what got you into thinking of like, hey, you know what? Let me bring, Mexican culture, Mexican gods, and then afterwards, everything else involved with the book.
Yeah. So for me, it was there's not a lot of representation for Latino stuff out there. And I looked at my uncles and all of them like Speed Racer was like their hero. Like that's
Yeah,
the only comic book character that they know. And
Yeah.
I was just like, well, he's not Latino. Like he works in a garage. Like
yeah.
and all my uncles are mechanics.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
like, I see where they got that from. But like all of my older cousins, like I see your Dragon Ball Z thing, like Mexicans
Yeah.
relate to like Speed Racer, Goku, Vegeta, like they have their guys, but they're not Latin characters.
Right.
So I wanted a character that my uncles would see and be like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Like that guy's cool.
Yeah.
So I started kind of working on like, well, what does it mean to me? And then it got kind of a little too meta, where I was like, well, Latinos are like, it gets complicated because like we're a little bit Spanish, we're a little
Right.
bit like native, but I always just say I'm Mexican because it's the easiest. Like
Yeah.
I'm Mexican. That's what I am. My family is from the same little town, Tamazula. It's right outside of Guadalajara,
Mm.
and like I still have family there. Like my grandpa's still there, my grandma's still there. So I still feel connected to it. And it's just I wanted to showcase that and just kind of help answer questions for myself, like where did the gods go?
Mm.
And when the conquistadors came, if you don't have followers and you're a god, do you just like wander around when you have no people? So that's
Mm.
what this book is going to start to get into is like, well, the Aztec gods are gone except for the god of death who's on the cover
Yeah.
because all he has are the dead people that he's watching over. So his watch is never going to end. And now that this guy has kind of like made a deal with him and he's out there, it's kind of sparked new life into this god. And we're going to see that rise to the surface. and just what's going to happen now that like magic is trickling out.
Mm.
And that's the cool thing with like that Jimena character too, because she's the main antagonist throughout all of this. But I have a short story for her coming out, and it's just the most fun to write her because she's just, yeah, she's great.
And by the way, so like I did show it to my kid, right? My kid's a huge like Supernatural. I don't know if you ever seen this TV series.
Oh yeah,
She's a huge fan of Supernatural and that kind of stuff. And at the same time, so I was born here in Chicago, right? And then she was born here in Chicago. So I feel like she's in that group where she feels disconnect from the culture because she's also half white. So what's it called? So she feels that disconnect, right? She's like, you know what? I don't feel truly Mexican. So she's trying to find things that make her like feel more Mexican. So I told him like, hey, there's this book. I really liked it. Like, I don't know if you want to try it. And she's like, oh, what's it about? I'm like, all right, think of a mariachi guy does supernatural quests, like the supernatural thing. And she's like, wait, so Mexican is doing like the supernatural stuff? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I want to see it. So I'm like, she read it, and then it was hard to get it back because the one thing about her is when she likes a book, it's very hard to get him back from her because I just don't like her having them because she doesn't take care of the comics the way she should. And
You know she's gonna listen to this podcast.
oh,
right? And you're
she's
not gonna
right
hear
next to
any
me,
of
dude. Like she's like
I'm
she's
gonna send
right
her a copy.
here.
Yeah,
She's like
I'll send
right
her
here.
her own copy too.
it.
Yeah,
Like she'll listen to it. So she considers, since she was a little kid, she always considered herself manager of the podcast. So we
Yeah,
would go to
that-
conventions. She would go around like, "Hi, I'm the manager," right?
She is the
And like I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" I'm not gonna say no, right? I'm like, "Oh yeah." So everybody's like, "Oh, that's so cute," right? So like now she grew up. So now she's a teenager. And what's it called? But now she's like, "Oh, I'm still the manager. Everything has to go through me." And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
We're gonna have to reevaluate that position because while I did agree at first, she ain't been doing no management work lately. She been dipping out of us to go play with friends and enjoy them.
Now, so I also read some of the other books that you have. For example, I read Cinema Muerte. Now, I won't say what I think about it yet because this isn't for a future one of the indie reviews that we're going to be doing during the episodes and on Instagram. So everybody that's following us, you'll find out more about them. But I highly encourage you guys to get any of the Aviña comics because they are really good. They're well written. The illustration is amazing. So I gotta say, like, it is amazing work. It is rare to find somebody and like an indie comics, and especially a new one because you started this 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I started writing it for comics 3 years ago, and like I remember. So for my son's first birthday, we took him to Disney World,
Mhm.
and I was in line for the Frozen ride, and my phone went off, and I looked, and it was the first like 6 pages of sketch art for Lockjaw because that was our first book,
Mhm.
and I was like geeking out hard. And then we went last year, and I got back the lettered pages. So
Oh,
within that like year to year mark of us going, I got it started and I got it completed. And I was in Epcot the next time, but I was drinking in the Mexico Pavilion.
mhm.
But I got the finalized pages, and I was just like, oh, like I have a completed comic. And then the panic came in of like, how do I sell it? What do I do? So now I'm doing like the convention circuit and all that stuff. But what we were kind of talking about it earlier about like the representation, where do the ideas come from,
Mhm.
and how you said your daughter felt that disconnect.
Mhm.
So I lived in Pilsen most of my life, like right there on 18th and Ashland. There's a tortilleria, and that's my grandpa's.
Really?
So like so I would come in and out of there just like I felt like I owned that block because I was just running around doing whatever the hell I wanted.
So I currently live on 52nd and Ashland, and I go to the Orange Line all the time, and I see all of that. Like I go all that way. I've eaten there quite a bit recently, actually.
The
Yeah.
Comales right there has been there like my whole life, so I'm a frequent visitor when I go.
Okay.
But I wrote that last Paletero, as like a love letter to Pilsen and the neighborhood because I moved out to the suburbs.
Mhm.
So I'm in like Lamont, but it doesn't feel like I'm home. I still work in Pilsen, like my funeral home is there.
Okay.
So I wrote because I wanted to make a folk hero because we don't have one. Like the closest we have is Zorro, but that's like I found
Yeah.
out recently that wasn't a Mexican guy that created it.
No.
Yeah, there's nothing there's nothing Mexican about Zorro at all. So that hurt. So I was just like, well, I need somebody. Like, there's got to be someone cool. So I looked like, well, who's in the neighborhood that everyone sees, that like knows everyone's story? And I was like, the elote guy, the paletero guy.
Mhm.
And I liked saying paletero more. So I did like a lone wolf and cub thing where like he has his cart and like the bars come out and their weapons. And I was like, I wanted to make a folk hero. So your daughter's not alone in that, like feeling that disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it happens, right? I think and there's always that kind of feeling too. So I grew up in a little village. I grew up on 26th in California, or yeah, 24th in California. So I was always like on Cermak. That was the biggest closest street to me. I was just always on Cermak, and like when I was living there when I was growing up, I felt very Mexican because I was like everything is Mexican around me. Now I had the luxury of going and moving to Mexico. We moved out there. We were living there for 3 years, and I learned I was a not a traditional Mexican because it's a different lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, it kind of happens where it's like here I was always like, oh, I was the Mexican guy, and when I went to Mexico, I was the American guy, right? Because it's
Yeah.
so I was like, oh, okay, I guess. So it's just funny, right? And but like what you were saying with my daughter and like other kids, because she does tell me about other kids in her school where it's like even speaking Spanish sometimes like it's hard for a lot of kids because they just either they don't get taught it or they just don't want to learn. I have a cousin who just refuses to learn it because he thinks learning it will bring no benefit. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, hey, go ahead. It's that's what
Yeah.
you feel. Go ahead. I mean, I know like for me, speaking Spanish has helped me throughout my whole lifetime. Currently, I am uh, I have a confusing role, and I have to make sure I get it right because I get corrected because I am not I am not technically the basis of an engineer because if I say, "Oh, I'm an engineer," Mr. Manspider is real quick to correct me, like you're not an engineer. I'm between a data analyst and an engineer, so it's kind of like it's one of those weird titles, right? So even in this role, there's so many people that speak Spanish in the company, and just by me speaking Spanish, and there's people in higher positions in other departments. I talk to them, and just because I talk to them, I get stuff done faster than everybody else because they'll prioritize, whatever
Yeah.
if I ask them to do something. So to me, like speaking Spanish has always been a very huge thing in my life, and I do like anytime I see it in art or I see it in movies and stuff, and especially when it's organic and it's not like when you watch Hollywood movies and they
Yeah.
bring in these Mexican characters and their Spanish is just so bad you're like, bro,
Yeah.
come on.
I was watching. I love the Magnificent Seven, the new
Oh,
one.
yeah, okay.
It's like a guilty pleasure for me. But I know everyone's name in that movie, but the Mexican guy,
Yeah.
because they don't really they say it once, and then like that's it, and then he's always like they just call him like muchacho and stuff,
Mhm.
and then every time he talks, like I can feel the accent like pouring out. And I was like, that's not real.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like you're doing it more. I was like, I get it because it's like that's what that movie is kind of doing. It's playing with like the stereotype of like the Western genre. And I was like, I
Mhm.
get it. But like, I feel like that's every Mexican character in most things
Yeah.
for like any kind of genre stuff. Like the worst, I'm still getting mad about it, is Suicide Squad
Oh, yeah.
with
Yeah.
Diablo.
Yeah,
And
Diablo, yeah.
like everyone else sees like the perfect future. Like Harley and Joker are in the kitchen cooking, but Diablo still face tattoos and everything. Like his perfect life, it was just like a Tuesday for him. I was like, he didn't want to go back and like fix anything that happened. And then like he gets like that Aztec deity moment or whatever,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, like that's cool. And then it just gets snuffed out, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess Suicide Squad. Yeah,
Oh,
David
yeah.
Ayers and me got issues, man.
I think a lot of people have issues with him because of that movie.
Well, and then like he did Training Day and stuff too.
yeah,
And then I was watching Training Day, and I was watching the scene where they put Ethan Hawke in the tub, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like a great scene. So I'm like looking up the actors because they're all Mexican gangbangers, right?
yeah,
One of the actors is Mexican. The other guy, the main guy, Smiley, he's not. He's like Arabic or something.
yeah.
He's
He's
not
Arabic.
Mexican.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I remember seeing that, and I was like, all right. And then like Street Kings, I was like, it's kind of Training Day too. And I was watching, and I was like, oh, okay, like there's that Hector guy again, and
yeah.
we're doing it over again.
And his name is always
Always Hector. Like
and
at first
he-
I thought it was funny, but now I'm just like, poor guy. Like that's the roles that they're giving him.
Yeah, I mean,
when you get
Yeah.
typecast and you never can get out of it.
Yeah, it's
Speaking of
rough.
which, the funniest thing that you said is the fact that the Arabic guy was playing Mexican, because I guarantee you, the first time I met Miguel, I would have
here we
swore
go.
he was Arabic. I knew
Everybody
from
thinks that.
it.
Everybody thinks that.
He was like, it doesn't help that he always plays into the joke, and he'll hit you with the whole new world.
So, like obviously now I grew facial hair, but before everybody used to call me Aladdin, because they're like, you look Arabic. I was like, oh, okay. And then when I was younger, I used to work in retail, and even when I was working construction and all that, like everybody thought I was Arabic, everybody, right? And it got to a point where like when I was working in retail, we just happened to be in a zone which was very populated, which was by like 63rd and Cicero, so it's like right by Midway Airport. Um, so there was a lot of Arabic people that would go to that store, and all of them would come up to me and they would start talking to me in Arabic, and I'm like, whoa, wait, I don't speak it. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And they're going off, and from there, they thought I was Arabic, but just didn't speak Arabic, so they started cursing me, and I could tell because their faces starting to turn red, their heads moving more, they start using their hands more, and I was like, wait, Mexican. I'm like Mexican. And then they stop. Mexican? I was like, yeah. Oh, so sorry. And they leave. I was like, oh crap. But yeah, I get that. I've gotten that my whole life. Like, oh, are you Arabic? Or no, I'm not Arabic. I am Mexican. I don't believe I have any Arabic in my bloodline from what I recall, from what I've been known, right? But maybe it's my mom, because my mom's de Veracruz, so maybe from there, I don't know how, like they're a little darker and the nose is more prominent. Maybe, I'm not sure. But when you were talking about, looking into your own culture, I thought that the best one, well, besides the Pistolero one, right, is the Lucha Forever, just because what says more like, hey, I'm Mexican than La AAA and La Lucha Libre. I was like, like I remember like La Parca and all those. Like, I was like, okay. I was like, so this really caught my attention, and I showed it to one of my friends. He's he's both of our friends.
Yeah,
He's
but
both
he's
of
a
our
huge
friends.
wrestler. Yeah.
And he's huge into wrestling. He has a wrestling podcast and everything, and he goes to all the indie shows here in around the Chicago area. And
Yeah, the
what's
ones
it
in
called?
like Berwyn.
So,
Yeah.
and he actually interviews the wrestlers. They jump on his pod and all that. So anytime there's something out there, like I'll tell him, hey, dude, there's this book. So like I told him, like, hey, dude, there's a wrestling book I found. And he's like, oh yeah, just send me a copy, and like I'll read it. So I haven't been able to send it to him because I was gonna give it to him this weekend. But like, yeah, so if you get any an email or any messages from a weird person saying like, hey dude, I really appreciate your book, it was him, right?
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I don't know if you could see behind me. We actually made the mask.
Yeah, the
I
Lucha Man.
seen it on
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, we did it for the Kickstarter. So we had a tier where people could buy it. So we sold a couple of them, and
And I
like
missed
that
the Kickstarter,
story.
of course. course,
It
I
was
missed
last.
that
Yeah. Yeah. We're making more, and we're gonna take them to conventions when we go. So, but those wrestling shows in like Berwyn, a lot of those wrestlers, some of them live in Pilsen.
Mhm.
So they saw my flyer. So I like reached out to them on like Instagram and stuff. And I was like, hey, like, I'm trying to make this book. It's about wrestling, but it's about like Mexican parenting and all this other stuff. I was like, so like, if you could you like share it? And a bunch of them were like, yeah. And they like shared it out. So I got a bunch of weird messages from like wrestling fans. They're like, is this a cartoon? Like, what's this on? And I was like, it's a comic. Like, you should read it. I was like, you might like it. And then, yeah, but no, that book is, I'm like real protective of it because a lot of it is like, it goes real deep into like parenting stuff coming up and all that. And it's like the dad's whole mission statement in it is like straight positivity. Like, I'm still gonna be an actor, even though I'm like,
Yeah.
50 and the world's ending around me. Like, I can still do it. And just having a kid and jumping into a new career, I was like, I need to tell that story. And yeah, Lucha Forever, there's a lot of really fun stuff coming up because we're on issue 2 now.
Okay.
Yeah, and the opening sequence of issue 2, it's not going to spoil anything or anything, but it's like a giant WrestleMania scene, and it starts with that El Toro Fuerte guy from the first issue
Mhm.
on top of a ladder and King Midas at the bottom. So I was like recreating like all these like raw moments from like my childhood.
Nice.
That is
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Like my dad was considering at one time becoming a wrestler. So my dad used to do bodybuilding when he was in Mexico. He competed. He won like Mr. Guanajuato. He won Mr. Michoacan, like city ones, and he competed for Mr. Mexico and he lost, and he's been bitter ever since. So he quit. He's like, I'm not doing it no more. And he told me, he's like, yeah, like I was gonna do wrestling right after that. I was like, bro, you do not work out as a wrestler. Like he has the worst temper. Like I took him to one of the shows, right? So like the heels are always the ones that they rile up the crowd. So they're riling up the crowd, and we just happened to be right under the announcers. This was at Bourbon Street on 115, and like by Kedzie, and what's it called? So we were right under the announcers. So he started blowing kisses to the announcers, not us. I look up, I'm like, okay, they're up there, right? My dad, for some reason, thought it was towards him. He felt really offended. He's over there flipping them off. He starts like trying to like rush to the ring. Me and my brother holding him like, bro, chill. What are you doing? He's like, he blew me a kiss. I was like, it was to the people upstairs. It was not to you. So I was like, yeah, you thank God you were never a wrestler, because I think you would have been a horrible wrestler.
That would have been a crazy moment if your dad just like pulled a mask out of his pocket. He's like, I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Right?
Takes off his shirt.
Yeah.
He got the spandex, the spandex pants. Just...
He's like, I wear them all the time just in case.
I can totally see your dad doing that.
Oh yeah.
He probably do it just to fuck with you and your brother. But I can totally see him doing that.
See, I would think so, but so obviously being Mexican, I played soccer my whole life until I messed up my ACL and needed surgery. And that's where all the weight came from, right? And what's it called? So I remember when I was still playing, my dad's like, "Hey, I'm gonna jump on the game." I swear, he touched the ball, and somebody came behind him, pushed him a little bit. He just fell, and like from there, he couldn't move his leg. Like agarró un desgarre. Like I don't know how to say in English. I'm sorry, Ernest. He pulled a muscle. He pulled a muscle. I guess that's what it's similar. I guess, but so because of that, afterwards he couldn't even put his socks on, couldn't put his shoe on. I was like, bro, I'm like, just stop.
My dad's like minor league soccer coach,
Okay.
and my little brother plays for like teams hire him in Joliet to go play. So like every other week he'll jump on a different team, but he gets paid to go. And then there's like me, who's like the older brother, who is just like, no, guys, like Batman. Yeah, and my dad's just like, no, it's fine, because I used to play, and I kind of had a temper on the field, but like off the field I didn't care. but
Mhm.
like I was a forward, so like if the ball got taken, I'm like running back past midfield to get it because like now it's personal, and then I'm
Mm.
missing it when it goes back. So soccer just never worked for me, but I'm working on a soccer book.
Oh
That's
shit, dude, that
because
shit's
I
awesome.
yeah, because like I need to. I got to cover that base and like what that could mean and like the kid that couldn't do it.
Yeah,
So it's gonna be fun, but
yeah, and
yeah.
like for us, for me and Ernest, so we're into the whole geek nerd kind of culture. So it comes like comic books, anime, manga, video games,
All of it.
coding,
Tabletop
uh,
games, everything.
tabletop, all that stuff. We cover a little bit of everything, right? But at the same time, we're also jocks. We go to the gym, stuff like so. You know, it's a weird aspect that we're in, a weird bubble, right? But right now, I like in anime, there is like soccer it became a huge thing. There's like
Blue
there's
Lock
Blue
there's
Lock.
Blue Lock.
is
There's what's the other one?
I can't remember the other one.
Uh,
There's
I
another
haven't.
soccer one.
yeah, there's another one. It's
It just came, so it came out a little
a
bit.
little
I
bit
want to say,
before it. Yeah,
yeah, a
it
little
came out
bit
a little bit
Oh,
before
okay.
Blue
before it.
Lock. But Blue Lock just it came in
Blue
so
Lock just
strong and
stole
so
it.
powerful, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
it just took over.
Anything anime, if you throw a tournament into it, you got the fan base. They're like, "Oh, a tournament arc? Yeah,
yeah.
like that's what I'm about 100%." But my favorite like sports anime thing was Eye Shield, the
Okay.
football one. Like
Yeah.
back in the day, I got super into that one. So when we're writing this one, we're writing it as a manga
Oh.
because I love that idea of it, and it's got all your shonen like beats to it. So it's a kid leaving middle school, and his whole dream is to go play for the high school team to make it.
Mm.
But the high school team is in ruin. Like there's only one varsity guy, and he has to like recruit for the team because they don't have enough people for the season. And this kid doesn't have the talent to do it, but he's a great strategist. So he's
Mm.
working with the coach who's like a former like player who busted his knee and now he's real bitter about the game, but he needs to coach to make money. So it's got all your shonen beats,
Isn't
but
that
I'm like,
not? And you just described
yeah.
every anime.
Well, that was
That's
my pitch. I
exactly.
was just like, we're not
Yeah.
going to do anything crazy, but we're going to do it really fun. And they're like, all right. Yeah.
Bro,
And I feel like, but that's what I love most about like a lot of anime and stuff. And matter of fact, let's just stick to shonen itself because the concept of them, most of the shonen are the same. It's just the way and they tell their story. The story itself is what's different. It's like, but the overall concept is a lot exactly the same. And a lot of people make jokes. Oh well, this is just a new age fairy tale, or this is just a new age. This well, it's true. It is, and it works. It just
it
it's
does.
for a different generation. It makes us feel good. Like yes, it's the same story, same struggles, but we're seeing it in a new light in a different way. And to bring this back to actually a few of your comics, I want to talk about Lockjaw and the Pistol Real Campfire Tales 1 because this is one of the first comics I seen that had maybe 3 words in it,
Yeah.
but it was so much detail in the art and the way that it was shown that you understood the story completely without anything actually being said in the story. And I feel like that was again, it was phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, no one's ever. So I love that story because that kid Boyo is supposed to be like like you don't even get his name in it, but his name is Boyo, and he's an issue 2 of Lockjaw. But so that's gonna be his Robin, and he's mute. So like
Mm.
when me and my dad communicate, it's a lot of sounds. It's like "epa," and then I'll
Mm.
point, or "mijo," and just like point at something, or like snap. Like there's Mexicans, we make sounds, and then we're just like, oh, like if I see someone I know, I go "hey," and that's it. Like I don't have to say hi. It's just "hey," and that's it. We got it. So for this kid, I was kind of doing that. Like the kid doesn't need to talk because he's talking to himself. I was like, he's with Chupacabra, so like they don't care what language he's speaking.
No.
I wanted to do that silent thing, and I wanted to do it as like a challenge to myself. Like I don't want to get too wordy because the first draft of Lockjaw didn't have narration in it
Mm.
at all. And then I gave it to a couple of people. They're like, that's cool, but I don't know who he is until like 7 pages in. So like maybe put something at the top that kind of explains it to the reader, and then just let you can drop it. So that's why it has that structure in the beginning.
Mhm.
So for Boyo, I was like, well, like you said, you don't have to hear him talk to know what's going on. It's just here he is, and then puppy's missing, and like the adventure begins, kind of a thing. But yeah, Boyo's one of those characters that when he jumps in, I have to kind of slow him down so he doesn't steal the scenes, because him and those chupacabras, man, it's gonna be yeah.
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
So, what has been the best, and I wouldn't say the worst, but the hardest moment when you started creating the books, or when you started your own comic book company? Because you have your own company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Avena Comics it's me as like the writer creator. And I think when I go to conventions and stuff, people think I'm just like a salesman for it, because
Mm,
I have like there's 4 Lockjaw books out right now. Because we have Lockjaw 1, Campfire Tales 1 and 2,
yep,
and then we have the double feature.
the double feature.
So we have those 4 books out, and then on the other side of me is like Lucha Forever, Cinema Muerte, and The Last Balletero. So it looks like it's like a team of people working on it,
Yeah.
but it's like it's me. Like I'm just me, my wife, and my son at all these conventions. So I get to talk to people, and then when they realize like, oh, you're doing it all, that's awesome, and then the conversation kind of begins. So that's really the best part, is like when that person comes up to my table. And just recently, I was in Ohio for a convention, and like not my target audience, but like most of the people are Mexican, that like they'll see the name and go, "Oh, paletero or pistolero, that's cool," and then they'll flip through it, and then I talk to them, and then usually they'll like at least check it out, or some will buy it and stuff. But over there, like it was a lot of white people,
Yeah.
because it was Ohio, and then just me. So I was just like, all right, well, and it was an anime convention. I didn't really know that going in. Like I thought it was like animation and comics and all that stuff, but it was
Mhm.
like an anime thing. And I was like, I don't have anything anime. I was like, so we'll just figure it out as we go. But like I think people are just looking for something different. And my books are different. They're a little weird. They're a little silly sometimes. Like Cinema Muerte has a lot of jokes in it. And there's D&D references and stuff, but uh getting those people when they stop and they talk to me and I see them excited about it, and then they ask me to sign it, I was like, oh, like that's cool that they're not just picking it up because they feel sorry for me. They want me to sign it because they're like, if this turns into something, I want to, like, I was here to support you. I was like, oh, that feels good, like that people care, and it's
Yeah.
not like just my friends or family at this point. Like there's other people out there with my book, and that's a great feeling. The hardest is I've given it to like Comic Pros, and I've submitted it to, because I didn't want to self-publish at first. I was hoping to get it picked up. Like immediate rejection. Like I submitted it, and then right away, I think it was, I can name it. Like they're not buying it. So it was Aftershock Comics.
Okay.
They were just like, hey, this looks cool. We like the art. We don't know about the story. And I think it's because it's a mariachi singer that
Yeah.
fights monsters, but that's what it is on like the surface level of it. But really, the story is like, if you notice in the first issue, Jimena comes in and ruins the life of 3 people.
Yeah.
At the end of it, Lockjaw shows up to that camp, and there's 3 guys there. That's a group, and he breaks them apart. So he's kind of becoming to the monsters what Jimena is to him.
Mm.
So I'm kind of playing with some of that dynamic here of like, this isn't the guy that, like, he's not Hellboy. He's not going to kick open a door and like jam his way through stuff. He's got to figure this out. And what does that mean? Like his gun didn't have bullets. It had sage rounds,
Hmm.
because he's not going to shoot a person. He's going to make sure he's fighting a monster.
Yeah.
So there's a story there, but on the surface, I'm not going to tell that to like some guy looking at it. I'm going to be like, that string has silver guitars because silver hurts werewolves, and there
Yeah.
are werewolves in this story. Like, yeah, I got to get them into it. So there's stuff like that. But when you're submitting, they want like 2 paragraphs to summarize your story, and then like a sample page or 2, and that's
Mhm.
really all I got. And I was like, I don't know if it was my pitch. I don't know if it was the story itself, but like the immediate rejection for that. I sent out Cinema Muerte like right after that too, and that fell flat. like that one, I think it's because they didn't really know what to think of it because it's like a horror comedy.
Yeah.
So I think people saw it and they were just like, "What's your market?" And I was like, "Anyone that likes like Scream, bro." Like, yeah, if you've seen Evil Dead or Clerks or Mallrats, like
Yeah.
this is the book. Like, yeah. But that's why I decided ultimately to self-publish it because like there was a moment where I got those rejections back, and I was like, "Well, this is it. Like, no one's gonna buy it. No, I don't know what to do with it." But a writer friend of mine said, like, "Well, just release it yourself." He's like, "Just sell it." He's like, "What's the worst that could happen is someone picks it up and now you have like one person that likes it." He's like, "So just do it." So I did that. I bought like a couple of them, and we sold out of the first run of Lockjaw, which was awesome. I was like, okay, like this feels good. Like even now, I'm just writing them, and like I'll still submit stuff, but now I'm writing it, and I'm like, okay, if they don't pick it up, like this is how I'm gonna market it. This is what I'm gonna do with it, and it's now I'm writing for me and like putting it out there, and people are responding to it.
Hmm.
So, slowly building that fan base, but it's scary when you're like a team of one doing it because every like failure is like 10 times harder because I have no one to share it with. And then
Yeah.
like success, I like text my artists. I'm like, hey guys, like someone picked it up and like Medicine they said this, or like Marcus, the one that did Cinema Muerte,
Mhm.
he done like he's doing a Lockjaw short right now. And it's Lockjaw and I can announce it, it's cool. It's Lockjaw and it's his mentor Van Helsing,
But
and they're
also,
going out to kill Christopher Columbus.
oh, yeah, nice, nice.
Because the whole thing is like Columbus didn't die. The reason why he set out to the New World was to find like a key to immortality.
Mm,
And basically, so in Lockjaw, like Jimena wears that necklace,
uh-huh.
and souls are gold to be bargained with.
Right.
That's what Columbus did. He conquered these new places to create the magic to perpetuate his life. And now he's just an asshole. So it's like, well, I mean, he always was. Now we have magic to go with it.
Yeah.
And so it's him and it's Van Helsing, and it's like this. It's called Kill Columbus. Like Lockjaw and Van Helsing, let's kill Christopher Columbus. Yeah.
That's perfect. I'm not gonna lie, that is perfect.
Absolutely. I'm definitely gotta get a copy of that one.
Yeah.
Especially the way the story's been told so far.
Yeah.
And there's a guy in there that you're gonna like. His name is Cochillos, which means like knives.
Knives, yeah.
Picture like Danny Trejo, but
Yeah.
this guy's whole bit is that he can't be killed. Like he thinks he's immortal, and you'll find out why and stuff as the story goes. But it's just like the arrogance of it is like every one of like the machismo thing of like my uncles. I wrote it like, oh, my one uncle still thinks like he's the fastest runner in the family, even though I can hear his knees click. I was like, that's in here.
Especially when you get about 6 beers in. Okay, nobody
Oh,
beat me.
I got so I play Dungeons and Dragons with my cousins, but I run a Star Wars campaign.
Okay.
And like some of my uncles found out about it and they were just like, well, like I can do that and I'll be like the best player. I was like, well, there's not really a best or worst player. Like you're just playing the game. They're like, no. Like I'd go in there and I'd just like run through your guys. I'm like, Theo, that's not how this works. Like,
Yeah.
So are you saying that you are a DM? Because
I am.
we have been looking for a great DM. We've been studying. So we have our group. Of course, we have the Be Serious podcast. We've been trying to figure out how to get some games started because we are working on doing some streams and things. And having a Dungeon and Dragon run has been on our to-do list, and one of the things that we would love to actually happen and get done. Um, we might need to set something up. Maybe set up a one shot and see how it goes from there.
Wait,
That would be
wait, what'd you say? A one chat?
One shot.
Oh, one shot. Okay, I thought you
You
said
gotta
one
know the
chat. I was like,
terminology,
what
man.
app is that now,
You
man?
see-
Like, I was like, what? I was like, no, but yeah. So we have always been wanting to get into Dungeons and Dragons. It's always kind of been a guilty pleasure of us. So we bought the board game, you know,
okay.
and what's it called? And from there we would play that one, the tabletop board game. And I want to say last year, we also do we have a page on Facebook. It's called GeekCon Illinois, and we try and post all the conventions that are coming out in the Illinois area. So from there, one of the people from the convention reached out. They're like, "Hey, I got a convention. It's very geeky." He's like, "Think Dungeons and Dragons. That's what it is. That's all it is." And we're like, "Oh, cool. Do you want to jump on the podcast?" So he jumped on, and he was just amazing. But over there, they play Pathfinder and
And
Starfinder.
Okay.
Starfinder.
Yeah.
So what's it called? And from there, we went to the convention. What's it called? We got to learn how to play Pathfinder. I know how to play it, but I cannot be the person to explain to somebody else like, hey, this is what you do, right? So like we've gone to a few of their gaming sessions and stuff. So it like from there we're like, bro, Pathfinder is amazing. We still gotta try Dungeons and Dragons because we
Yeah.
haven't tried Dungeons and Dragons. But from there, we're like, all right. So we got the actual organizer. He's for him to agree to be the at least a dungeon master for a Pathfinder run. So we are still looking for a few more players for Pathfinder. So once we get that all set up, we'll start doing a small mini campaign as well. And just because we want to branch out, right? Because I want to say back in the day, right? Like if it wasn't Dragon Ball, like you mentioned it before, Dragon Ball Z. If it wasn't Los Caballeros del Zodiaco or Saint Seiya, for those people that may not know what that is, if it wasn't Los Super Campeones, which was Captain Toshiba, like it was like, oh, it wasn't really heard of, right? Like
Yeah.
even comics wise, people like, especially I would say the Latino community wasn't big on comics. What's it called? And I don't know why, but yeah, they weren't just big on comics. So I didn't start enjoying this kind of stuff until I was in high school. But when I was in high school, it wasn't cool back in the day
Yeah.
to like that kind of stuff. So you would not say you like that kind of stuff. And then now when we got older, I started the podcast, and from there I started finding out that a lot of these people that were like like the cool people, I guess you could say, which were just like ganguerillos, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
they're huge nerds. It's just they never got to say like, hey, I like this kind of stuff. So from there they had to hide it and they went the opposite route, I guess, in life. But from there, like they're like, hey dude, like I like this, I like that. I'm like, oh shoot. I'm like, I would have never guessed, right? But
Yeah.
like times have changed. Comic books have gone super popular. Anime has gone super popular. Who doesn't watch anime at this point? Like Marvel movies, DC movies, as they're coming up, they're kind of elevating comic books with them.
Yeah.
At least that's how I see it, right? And so for all those people that are getting into it, and especially younger people like my child right here, um, if somebody wants to if they have an idea, right, they're like, you know what, I want to create this book, um what would be your advice for them to be like, you know what, uh to create your book? And because it is scary, it's scary to write a
Yeah.
book and then not, for example, not everybody knows how to draw, not everybody knows the rules of comics, because apparently there's rules in creating a comic book, there's rules in storytelling, right? And then even in that, the narration of a comic, it also, you have to know how to do that. But if you have no experience whatsoever, all you have is just an idea and a passion for it, like what would you recommend for them to do?
So when you first start, and this is like something that I listen to like a lot of audiobooks, and like Stephen King's like my favorite like author.
Mhm.
So in one of his books on writing, he said like everyone's just imitating somebody else. I'm a huge Simpsons guy. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer wants to be an inventor, and he's got like the Thomas Edison, and then it's Homer, and it's like he invented this much, I've only invented this. So it's okay to be that for like when you're starting. Write like the author that you love, because as you're doing that, you're gonna find your voice in it. And then once you find your voice, it's gonna make everything easier. So the first step is find your voice, find the story that you want to tell, and then figure out how you want to tell it. So like I'll do Lockjaw. So I wanted to tell the story of I wanted to tell like the opposite of a revenge story, because Lockjaw on the surface looks like it's a revenge tale. But like I said earlier, it's a story about a guy figuring out like, well, what am I now that I can't be the person I wanted? I wanted to be a mariachi, like I wanted to be a singer, and now that I can't, well, what am I? And that's what this is gonna be, but with like guitars and monsters and shit blowing up. So find what the story is that you want to tell. Like, what's the question you're asking yourself, and then what's the shell you want to put it in to tell it.
Mhm.
And then don't worry about the art, because don't approach an artist until you know your story inside and out. Because the moment you bring another person to the table, they're going to start to pick it apart. So for Lockjaw, I've been sitting on Lockjaw for like 5-6 years before I even gave it to anybody. But I know everything about him essentially. Like he still surprises me when I'm writing it, because I'm like, okay. And then like Gustavo walks into the bar or whatever. I was like, he approaches the counter, asks for a drink. The bartender looks at him, stares him down. He remembers he's in Texas. The Alamo happened 3 years ago.
Mm,
And then like from there, how am I getting out of Dodge? And then I start figuring out, but I let the character tell me, what are we doing? And then you follow. But I can do that because I know him. So get to know your character, spend time with them, because even if they're a villain, you got to know what their motivation is. Like no villain works if they're just like Barris is bored, so he's blowing up planets. There
right.
is no challenge, he's blowing stuff up. So his biggest problem is that he's bored. Well, all right, like
Yeah. And
that
how do you solve that?
yeah. So stuff like that, like figure out who all of your characters are, because if you don't know them, don't write them, because then that's when characters get flat. Like even when you watch like the original Mario movie, that director didn't know who these guys were. He's like, they're brothers, something about lizards and fungus, and
Yeah.
that's how. But like if you look at the new one, they're like, okay, it's campy, it's fun, they're jumping pipes, we're not asking questions on how this works. This is their world, I'm just showing it to you. When you understand your world and your characters, it's all going to trickle in. So first step, find your voice. Second step, find your character, like find who they are, and then take it to an artist. Artists want to draw, like if they want to create, if they could write, they're gonna go off and write and create their own stuff. But the ones that are willing to collaborate, they want to be a part of something, and they're going to bring ideas into it, and they're going to see something that maybe you miss, like Lockjaw having the skeleton, the head on his thing. That wasn't my idea, that was the artist, because he was like, well, what if he's kind of like branded with the Aztec gods thing, and he
Mhm.
just realized that the whole time. I'm like, yeah, that fits into it. So let that, like, don't be afraid to collaborate,
Mhm.
because the worst thing that can happen is that you don't make it, and that's fine. You still have that to enjoy with yourself, but you want to try at least. So getting to step 3 is the hardest, because that's giving it to the artist and letting them, like, trusting them with your baby to put it together.
Yeah, and that's usually the hardest part. I mean that goes with everything, right? For
Yeah.
me, whenever I work on, I'm working on a integration. I don't do the coding, but I work on integration and the planning, and then I gotta hand it over to, the everybody else that's gonna do their job. I don't know what it's gonna come out until it comes out, right? There's no like, I mean, there's sprint reviews and stuff like that, but honestly, it's just like all I gotta do is just cross my fingers and hope they didn't mess it up, and
Yeah,
you know.
like I did my job. Look, I did my. This is Overwatch all over again. It's look, I did my role. I can't help the tank no more than what I'm doing right here. If I
Yeah.
had a tank that was gonna be a tank, then we might have been able to do what we need to do. But I did my role, and that's all I can do.
Mercy
So
can only heal so much before it's your own fault, right?
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
which by the way, like we have my kid playing as Mercy. She is amazing as Mercy. So from there, it's like, all right, We only got to worry about one healer and the tank, because I'd rather be either the healer or the DPS. Ernest usually just picks the DPS because he's like, let's not trust
It's the most
anybody else.
fun role. Yeah, so I'm an all arounder, but I'm like DPS is the most fun role.
Yeah, it is the most fun one. But and so like you said earlier, like being in a team of one is scary. So like me and Ernest understand that 100%. So we actually met in a IT boot camp in Chicago. It's called IC Stars. And like when we went there, it's that we were told like, hey, everybody's gonna get separated into groups of 5, and from there you're gonna work with a client. So we at least I didn't know any coding at all, right? And it's like, all right, you're gonna go to the client, they're gonna tell you what they want, and from there you're gonna create it for them. I'm like, cool. So we were working with is it safe to say now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did sign NDAs, but I feel like that's it's been years. So
I was yeah, that was about 5 years ago.
yeah, that
So
was 5 years
you're
ago.
good. You're good.
So we worked with CIBC, the bank, and they wanted to start or they wanted a game for financial literacy for like teenagers and
Preteen.
preteens,
Yeah.
preferably preteens, but going at teenagers was like 12, 13, and that's about it, right?
Yeah.
So from there, they're like, we want you guys to create a game. We didn't know anything about coding, and we were a team of 5, right? On the first day, somebody dropped out. After that, somebody got kicked out. After that, somebody else got kicked out. So then it was just us two. So it was us two. We had to learn a computer language. We had to learn Python. We had to figure out how to make a game because they didn't tell you. They're just like, well, how do you make a game? Like, there's Google.
That's it. That's where we learned the phrase Google it.
And we're like, okay. So from there, we actually created, and it was a competition. Whoever's game was the one that went out there. That's the game that kind of won it, and that's the game that we're going to kind of make. So fortunately for us, we were the team that got chosen in the end. So we did win our concept one, and from there, once again, we don't know what happened to it. It was our baby. We don't know what happened.
So technically, you don't know what happened to it,
right? So
I did actually work and help get it. They actually hired me on to help draft it through like the MVP POC phase where we got a working example of it. It needed to be refined more, but we did. So after
I'm sure it needs to be refined a lot.
Well, yeah. So the code we did was completely smoke and mirrors, and it was like it made it look good and it worked in our demo, but it wasn't a functional game that can actually be played by any means.
So to tell you like this, John. So there was no way we're gonna code the whole game, right? It was impossible to code in 4 weeks, and as a beginner that knows no Python to create a game, it's impossible. So we talked to our mentors from CIBC. They're like, look, it's just the concept. It doesn't have to be a full functioning game. And everybody else was kind of like, no, it has to be a game, it has to be a game. So our team, our team was just me and Ernest.
Yeah. It was just...
we were like, you know what? Let's write the script for it to say on the first roll, it's gonna be this number, and you're gonna go to this box. And then this is gonna appear. On your second roll, you're gonna go, it's gonna be this number, and you're gonna go to this box. And and we only did up to the third one. That's it.
That's it. So we don't need no more.
When we demoed it, we got to the first box. We stopped at the second. From there, we're like, we were gonna go to the third, but we're like, you know what? Let's wait, because in case if they're like, oh well, are you like like let's see it one more time, like, all right, cool, we got one more time we could show you. So from there, like Ernest got hired on to be the ambassador for the game.
Yeah. What they call it? So it was a technical advisor. Yeah, I was a technical advisor to get the first iteration of the game out. But after that, we handed it off, and we handed off our baby. I will say we technically have a full live game out there I think it's on the Play Store or it's on their website that our names are attached to, and it will forever be our concept. That's our baby.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't played it. I lost it. I was like, I don't know what happened to it. I mean,
well, I mean, it's kind of good because like it's out there and you know the version of it that you created. So
Right.
that's the last that you saw of it. But because if you go in now and they totally changed it or they
Most
changed,
likely did.
yeah, and
I'm
then you're gonna go and
expecting
like,
them,
oh, I wouldn't have done that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm expecting them to change the whole thing, like everything, top to bottom. Right. I think the only thing they're gonna keep is the little mascot that we made. They just fell in love with the little mascot, and till this day,
he was 100% your idea. You can say it.
No, it was it was not. It was there was a puppet, right? We were at the studio. It was late at night. And I'm sure you've had these, John, where it's late at night. You're so tired. We were there from 8 a.m. till 8 o'clock at night, sometimes a little bit prior. And what's it called? Like you get the little
delirious.
So like I grabbed the puppet.
You've been working hard. You've been coding.
And what's it called? For some reason, I don't know why. It was a pig.
Because you're a dad. He started telling dad jokes with this sock puppet on his hand.
It was not a sock puppet. It was an actual little plush.
It wasn't a plushy puppet, but it was just me and him in a room, and we was trying to get some work done. And it was one of those moments where we were stuck, we was getting frustrated, and he just picks up this puppet and he starts just telling dad jokes with this, and it was the type of dad jokes that are so stupid that they're funny. It was just like, are you? I could not.
I live for that. Like that's like people will be like, "Oh, Johnny's always got like a joke in his pocket," kind of a thing, and it's just dad jokes or like on the fly puns that I can make because like that's all I got now. And then like I feel bad for my son because the moment he can understand it, he's gonna be like, "Dude, shut up." Like, there's a lot of overlap here. So like my first project when I was in film school, they put you in a group and it's like big groups. And I knew I wanted to go for like directing or screenwriting, but when they put you in these groups, you're not allowed to pick a role. It's like everyone has to carry all the weight. So we're there and they're like, we need to make a web series as a class. Every episode is going to be made by a different team. But like the overall concept has to be agreed on by like 30 people. And this is like the first week of school. So everyone's still pretending to be nice to each other, but it's film school, so everyone's also kind of a dick. Like, yeah, like I like Quentin Tarantino, but he's not like on my like wall of directors. He's not on my Mount Rushmore. I like him. Yeah, but he's not there, which will like get me crucified in like a film school. But everyone was pitching that idea, like this higher concept, or like it was just like a way to pitch swearing in class. And I was like, all right, so they want like foul language and like I tell dad jokes like my whole life. So I pitched the idea of puppets. And I was like, we're going to do a web series with puppets. And they're like, well, what is it? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, we're going to redo the Godfather scene where he's sitting there petting the cat, but it's going to be a human person and the Godfather is a puppet. And I was like, and maybe it's in a film studio because we had a studio in the school. And all the crew are puppets, except for the one guy who's responsible for telling the news, because there was like a news corner. And then the one person that's like the extra that's running around. I was like, everyone else is a puppet. And we called it Stuff It, which my buddy Jay came up with the name. But like, because they were like, all right, group one, what do you got? And none of us were really talking to each other. It was just like, what movie do you like? Kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go. Like, we'll just fucking do it. So I threw it out there and they're like, yeah, but they're like, how are we going to make puppets? And then this guy, Tim, who's like still one of my good friends, he's like a prop master guy. And he's like, my dad builds props. Like I can make puppets. And I was like, how soon can you make it? He was like, this weekend. I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I'll send you guys a link. It's still on YouTube somewhere. But the first episode was the idea that we pitched. Because as soon as I said puppets and like, they're terrible puppets, like they're terrible people. Everyone started spitballing ideas, and then it got bigger. But it was scary because I was like, all right, well now I'm defensive of these puppets. And
that's exactly how it went with us as well. I mean, down to the T, because even in our groups, it was like everybody's pretending to be nice. Nobody's really trying to take over, and it's like, oh no, you can do this or you can do this, and it's like
I was just quiet. I
you
was a
were.
quiet
And
person, kept to myself.
one of the reasons why Miguel and I click so well is because how opposites we are. Because even though we're both very strong-minded, strong-willed, and very smart and driven individuals, he is quiet and shy, and I am outspoken. So in your same senses, oh, they ask our group what's going on. I look at Miguel, he looks at me. Neither one of us wants to talk, but I just jump up and come out with the first idea in my head, and he's gonna ride with it every time. He's like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds like it works."
In
And
Dude,
you
cinema,
go get it done.
in Cinema Muerte, you know how it's like me, Chris, and Emily, or
Mm.
John, Chris, and Emily. John, my wife's name is Emily, and my best friend's name is Chris. So that was a script that I wrote that we were supposed to make together after I graduated, but like no funds, nothing like that, or whatever. So it just sat there. But the dialogue between John and Chris is all taken from real life conversations of us arguing, and it's you two guys too, like where you can hear like, well, he doesn't do this, and he was like, yeah. That's me and Chris every time. Because we first met, I was working at Barnes and Noble, and Chris came in to buy Spectacular Spider-Man, the like box set.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, like, that's a cool cartoon. I was like, we have the 90s series on DVD. And then it led to a 2-hour debate in the middle of my shift about why I like the 90s show and he likes Spectacular Spider-Man. And then for some reason, I was like, all right, here's my like phone number. We got to argue over beers next time. And we've been friends for like 15 years now. And he's like like he has a podcast. He's such a big Evil Dead fan that he just bothers like Bruce Campbell on Twitter every day. But he just interviewed the director for the last Evil Dead movie.
Oh,
Okay.
that
He
is
got to do that with his.
wonderful.
So I'm like, he lives in California now, so it's kind of sad. And you're leaving your friend too. So I was like, you guys can still create stuff together.
Oh, we will.
Be the model, yeah.
Oh yeah, like right now, I think the next thing we got working on is we're going to try and create a, we're not trying. We're going to
There you
create
go.
because he gets mad when I say try. We're going
There
to
is no
create
try. There is only do
a
or do not.
Do or do not. Yeah.
we're going to create a text-based game for
Okay.
the for the same convention that I talked about earlier, where it's like Pathfinder and Starfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, and it's like board games and stuff. And so like we're going to try and create we're going to create a video game for that convention to show it at the convention, which it'll just be for the convention. And if it rises from there, then cool. We'll just keep working on it. But it's been something we've been wanting to do. But we're like, oh, you know what? It'd be cool to start making games and especially like games that we play, right? Because and this goes back to a joke where when we met, we were all playing Oregon Trail.
So
So yeah, like so when we all met each other, for some reason somebody brought up Oregon Trail, and from there, like, bro, I haven't played that in the game in forever. We started playing it, and from there, it's just like
we
it
literally
just
spent the afternoon just
yeah. We
playing
spent
Oregon
we
Trail.
spent days playing Oregon Trail,
How many times do you guys die of dysentery?
and almost I have never made it in Oregon Trail, never
Me
made
either,
it.
actually.
But I've seen people that have, because I had to look it up. Have people complete Oregon, and it is possible. I just have never done it.
Target had a handheld version of it because my wife loves that game.
Mhm.
So I bought it for her, and now it's like under our bed because she's like, I can't play it anymore. Like this game is harder than it needs to be. Like those
It
old Disney
is.
games.
It's so hard for no reason.
Yeah, like you don't want. There's no way. I guess that's kind of the point. Like you'll never make it or something. But like, damn, dude, like give me a shot.
Right? I was like, oh my god.
It's crazy how the turnaround happens. 1 minute you feel like everybody's doing good. You just fix the wheels on your wagon. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
dysentery. Up, your whole cargo is dead.
Bro,
Like,
dysentery. You know, like I showed my kid the game, and she named it after me, my girlfriend, like her, like my
Oh, yeah.
brothers, and all that, right? And she's like, I come out from the shower. She's like, guess what happened? I'm like, what? You died from diarrhea. I'm like, what the hell? Like, out of like, could it have been anything else? She's like,
Yeah.
no, you died of diarrhea. I was like, oh, great, thank you.
I remember being a little kid and not knowing what like dysentery was. So
Yeah.
I finally like went to like the dictionary to like look it up. And then I found it and I was like, oh no, like that's a terrible way to go. I was like, let the snake bite me.
Oh man. So for you, John, if in like you ever got approached with like, hey, let's turn this into either a series, let's turn this into a movie, let's turn this into an animation like a cartoon, which book would you which book would be the one that you're like, you know what, this one? And if you do, which genre would you want it to go into?
So if I only got to make one into a movie, that's a real good question. Like, I think it would be Lockjaw and Pistoletto.
Okay.
And I think because arc 1 ends in a way that if I can't do Lockjaw anymore for whatever reason, people won't be mad at me. Like, no one's gonna be like, dude, what the hell? Like 4 issues and we're out. Like, that's not good. It ends in a way where it's a successful story that I told about this man and who it is. But when I submit stuff to artists, I take headshots of actors that I like and I cast every role. Yeah.
So that was gonna be my next question. Who would you cast for those roles? But it looks like you already thought about it.
Oh yeah. So Lockjaw was Diego Luna.
Okay.
Yeah. So that he's the original model for him was that. And then for Jimena, originally it was Ana de Armas because the dress that she wears is based off the James Bond dress that she wears.
Okay.
But I was watching Baby Driver, and I know her her last name is Gonzalez. I don't remember her first name, but she plays John Hamm's girlfriend in that movie.
Okay.
And yeah, let me see if I Google it. Yeah, but she would be the one I would pick for Jimena now.
Okay.
Pretty sure it was Baby.
Her name is
Gonzalez?
Asa Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And then there's characters that come up like later on in the series that I have like casted out. But for the director, there's a director who did a movie called The Tigers Are Not Afraid. Have you guys seen that one at all?
I actually have not seen it, but I
It's
will
really
Google
good.
it real quick.
Yeah. So her name is Isa Lopez. And that one was like just this horror movie that came out of nowhere. And it's like it kind of like it's a group of friends, but like it's set in Mexico. There's like a cartel element to it. Like it's such a gritty, dark movie that I want to see her. Like I think she could handle Lockjaw stuff because she would you have to treat it like a Western, and then let the other elements fit into like Logan.
Yeah, like
Logan's a Western first and foremost.
Yeah.
But then the superhero stuff kind of fills in. It needs to feel like that. So like if James Mangold was into it, I'd be super into it, but that kind of feel to it. Yeah.
I see you were one step ahead of me in the
For
second
sure.
question.
He has thought about this well.
Oh yeah. I spend a lot of my time when I should be writing pacing acceptance speeches for awards I'm not nominated for. That bottle. So I got that case thing behind me. It's the Guillermo del Toro Patron thing that he made. So I bought it when my son was born. My mom and my uncles got together and they put money for it. And they're like drink it when you have something to celebrate. So we cracked it open the day my son was born. And then I haven't drank it since because I was like, when something comes from this, like once I felt like I've done something with a comic, then I can pop it open again. So one day when some of this becomes a movie or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then my question would be, since we've thought about a lot of this so well, is what is one thing you want readers to take away after they read any of your books?
The biggest thing is if you're coming at it and you're a creator, I want you to feel like it doesn't matter that you're creating something that are like in a genre, because Lucha Forever is like a superhero tale essentially, because he flies, he does stuff, but it doesn't feel like that. It's the story about this guy and his one goal of wanting to be an actor, and what happens if you fail at something creative and people depend on you. That kind of a thing. Like, I want people to take away, like, he promised me a fun adventure, but he gave me like this really deeper meaning into all of these. Like in each one of them, in Cinema Muerte, it's a story about a group of friends, but when your friend group stays stagnant for too long and people start branching out and you feel like that kind of loss, what does that mean for you and how do you keep that bubble together? That's ultimately what that's going to be about. Lucha Forever, parenting. Lockjaw is just self-identity and how you're going to build it out. So like there's meat to these stories that's not just like the candy coating that I'm giving you. That's what I want people to feel. I want people to see like I came into it because he promised me a mariachi and a horse. And I came away in love with this mute kid and this relationship that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
And I gotta say, that is amazing writing. So from the books we've read, we could say it is amazing job on the writing.
Thank you.
We give you so much props. Now, we'll be honest. There's we try and be nice to all indie writers.
Yeah.
But
I
there's
mean,
some
we're gonna
books.
be real at the same time.
Yeah, but you know, I think there has to be a time where we're like, hey, you know what? Let's be realistic, right? I went to a convention and I was given this book. It was set in like the 1800s or something. I'm reading it and I was like, I don't care for this book, right? And the guy's so happy looking at me, and I was like, oh, I like the illustrations, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, thank you, you know. He's like, yeah, like I'm trying to sell some, like I haven't sold them any. So I was like, cool. I bought a book just because I still do like to support. I still have the book. Uh, but I wouldn't recommend the book to anybody because I like to recommend stuff that I enjoy and
Right.
stuff that I'm like, you know what, I, I truly enjoy this. I could actually tell you like, hey, I recommend this, and when I do recommend something, I I do in the hopes of people will be like, you know what, Miguel doesn't just recommend just anything. So I will say I definitely recommend all the books that you have put out there. I bought one copy of every single one already. Uh,
Yeah.
so what's it called? And amazing work. You know, like Ernest loved them. My kid loved them, and she really loved them. And at the same time, like you know, like I told my brothers about them. My brothers are not huge comic book people, but they do like luchadores and they do like, for example, El Mariachi, Desperado. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Think of that in Supernatural, you know? And
Yeah.
so from there, they're like, okay, well, I'll give it a read. So like, I am going to show it to them too. And I'm hoping that it'll turn them into like, hey, you know what? Let me get more into comics, you
Yeah.
know, because I think it's a beautiful art form that I think there's just a lot of people that think, oh, you know, like comic books is
Comics are
just
for kids.
superheroes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're for kids, it's just superheroes, it's just, you know, like bad writing, and it's not.
Yeah.
It is amazing writing, and there's a lot of talented people like yourself that are involved in these books. So, you know,
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you props for that. Now, Mr. Man Spider usually likes to have the last few questions. I don't know how many he still has.
Nah, I'm gonna be nice because you have done an amazing job, and I feel like you spoke so well to the stories and everything else. Um, I don't know
And
how
it's
else to close it besides you've already gave us what you want your readers to
Yeah.
see, what you think your movie list. Well, not even think who you want your movie cast to be. Like,
So I'll say this: Ernest has questions already, like where he writes them down. Like these are the questions I'm going to ask, and I already knew that this is the problem he's having because as you're talking, I was like, he answered this one, he answered this, he answered this. I'm like, oh, This will be interesting now.
So I will say for like you mentioned like there are a lot of indie comics out there. You mentioned like someone gave you one that you didn't really care for.
Right.
I usually gauge people too. So like when they come to my table, I'm not putting Lucha Forever into the hands of the guy that like is looking at Lockjaw.
Mhm.
If that's your thing, that's it. That's why I try to do different genre stuff. So like we have a story coming out. It's called Burrow, and it's about a are you guys familiar with like Redwall, like that book series? So it's
Redwall.
like they're like little mice and like forest animals, but they fight with like swords and shields.
Oh,
It was like
okay.
yeah, I read those when I was like a kid in like grammar school. But we have a comic that's coming out that's that kind of formula. So it's like a D&D story, but with like woodland creatures. Because I still want to tell my stories, and like I said, you got to figure out the bubble of the shell of how you want to tell it. So we have like that coming out. We have a straight up horror story called Americana.
I
And it's
did see
about
these stories.
yeah, there's a boy named
I had to go look at them. Yeah.
that's the yeah, so the kid's name is Chewy, and the cool thing about that thing, the postcard, if you look at the faces, every adult and person in the background of that is smiling,
Yeah.
except for the two kids.
Yeah.
So everyone else is really happy about what's going to happen, and obviously it doesn't look good. So that one is like the dad comes back into the boy's life after being gone for a while, and it's like a single parent story. And it's just like you can protect your kids when you have them at home, but you can't protect them from the world because the world will find them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a lot of them are super Mexican in like every way. And then in other ones, it's like Cinema Muerte. It's the name and it's the monsters. In this one, it's the relationship dynamic is like the Latinness of it, but it's in a way where anyone can grab it, read it, and they can find home in it.
Mhm.
But it's about recommending it to people because now people are sending me their comics and I'm like, oh, like this looks cool. Like it's a superhero thing. What's it about? And they're like, this guy has this power and that power. I'm like, but what's he using it for? And they're like, oh, he has to beat up that guy. I'm like, but why is he beating up that guy? And he's like, oh, because this bad guy's trying to do this. I'm like, you're telling me the plot, but like not who he is and why he is doing what he's doing. And I think that's where a lot of indie comics kind of get a bad name. It's everyone's got a superhero twist or tail, but it's so focused on powers and power structure. Like there's one guy I saw on TikTok, and his big thing was talking about how how his heroes could beat up like Justice League members or like Dragon Ball Z fighters. And I was like, if your guy is trying to beat up Goku, he's the bad guy. Like that's how I see it. Like if your guy's got beef with Spider-Man, your guy's not the guy coming out clean in this fight.
At all.
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to take out all our heroes? Like, what?
Yeah. I think that's the funny thing when people get into like the Superman Goku debate, like who would win in a fight. I was just like, once the fight starts and Goku like is in there smiling, Superman's not gonna hit him. He's gonna be like, oh, this guy's like having a good time. And then they're gonna solve whatever, and then some weird version of Frieza will show up.
And they both have to join forces to fight Frieza.
Right before Superman and Goku punch each other, Goku's gonna be like Martha, and then the whole thing will come down.
Oh my god, that was the biggest thing.
Why did you say that name?
That was the biggest thing in that movie, right?
Yeah. Because I was willing to forgive a lot. I was like, this is just like it's a visual treat. And then when they put that in there, I was like, don't try to give me something deep right now.
Right. Yeah. I was like, you know what? No. And it sucks because the DC animation movie of it is so good. Right?
Yeah.
It's so good. But the live action ones are just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's for another episode. Because you could talk about that forever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to do that D&D game if you guys want. I can send you over. I have like digital copies of like the player's handbook and stuff, so I can send it to you guys. You guys can read through it, text me questions or whatever, and then whenever you guys want to do a stream, I got like apps and stuff we can use. So,
nice.
Yeah.
See, because we were trying, and Ernest like, look, you're creative. Why don't you try? I'm like, dude, there's a difference between being creative and knowing how to play the game and knowing the rules. I was like, because the one problem we have is Ernest here loves to Google, YouTube, listen to podcasts
Let's
of
just say I
how
do my
to
research.
create
Yeah.
the most overpowered character in D&D. Period. So he's over here thinking like, "Oh, bro, I found out a way how to shoot like endless fireballs, endless, and every single time, what like they'll get like stronger and stronger." I was like, "I don't think that's possible." Oh, it is. He sends me this like 50-minute video. I was like, "I'm not watching this." I was like,
I
"Nah."
used to see him, the human railgun. It was
Oh
one of my
man.
favorites.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna play one game and then you're gonna take over as DMing. You're like Miguel, you're gonna want to do that because you're gonna be like, there's ways. And then when you get the player who's trying to break things or bust things, what you do is you hit them emotionally where it hurts. Because if you give them a stake where it's like you can cast fireball in this room of goblins, and then you let them do it, and then when they go in and everyone starts looting pockets, one of the pockets has a note that one of the goblins was going to sneak to him. That's like, I'm not a goblin. I'm in makeup. I'm trying to get out of this room. Help me. And now they got to live with the ramifications of you. How many of these goblins were actors that got kidnapped that you just killed? After you do that, people will start to scale back their powers a little bit because they're like, John's gonna do it again. Every time there's an actor in makeup. Yeah.
Oh,
That's D&D gets fun. So you're gonna love it. And once you start playing it, you're gonna come up with stories to DM, and then that's when it's gonna go crazy.
see, that's what we should do to Ernest, and that it reminds me when like when we were in the when we were doing the game for a while we had a third person, but that third person was doing absolutely nothing, and then afterwards just dropped out too. So when we would go talk to CIBC, he would be the person that we're gonna create this, we're gonna create that, we're gonna create a database. I was like, bro, do you know how to create a database? No, well, I don't either. Well, but we're gonna create. We'll find out. I was like, what? So we went back. We talked to our mentor, or the program manager, and she told us, you know what? Let him say whatever he wants, and just tell him, well, so you know what? That's a great idea. How about you're in charge of that? And we're like,
Yeah.
okay. So we did it. His face changed completely, right?
Yeah.
Completely to like, oh, just me. We're like, well, we're working on the game. You work on this data on the database. So he spent maybe a week or trying to figure out how to do a database, and he was just losing his mind. But to us, we're like, we told you no, you told them yes. All right, well then go do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like afterwards, we told the people from the bank, we emailed them like, we're not doing a database. And we explained to them what we told them what we're doing, and they're like, you know what? Thank you for letting us know. And yeah, we will keep going with the story. So we had even the people in the bank were like, you know what? And when we would meet, like, how's the database going? The guy's like, oh my god, they're like, oh, just hang in there. But they already knew. So yeah, like same theory.
Yeah.
We'll apply it to Ernest here.
Oh yeah, you don't have to shut me down because if you don't, it can get aggressive. I've done my research.
That's good though. At least you're coming to the table knowing like I want to exploit these abilities and see what happens. Because
Yeah.
that's fun for you to do. Because I've been a player on the table too, and I'm definitely the guy that like if there's a weird if we kill somebody and they got like a weird hat on, I'm taking it home. Like that's
Right?
my character. Like we fought like this evil circus thing, and the ringleader's hat fell because they're like, "Oh, you blast them back. The hat goes one way." I'm like, "Which way did it go?" And they're like, "That way." So like mid fight, I run, I grab the hat, I pop it on, and then I'm like fighting with the hat. But I always make sure to ask the DM, like, "Is the hat on?" He's like, "Yes, John." I'm like, "All right."
Oh,
And that
man.
will be me like that. Yes, doing
Yeah.
those crazy, weird, random things like.
You guys are gonna have fun for sure.
But yeah, so we definitely appreciate you spending some time with us, talking a little bit about your journey, a little bit about your comics, and like honestly, once again, great work. amazing storytelling. Uh, Nothing but raise from us. And for those that are listening, they know we don't just say that to anybody. And for those new listeners, no, we never met John Avignon before, so this is not scripted.
It
I
is
am
not a paid podcast.
Yeah.
It is not a paid podcast. If it was a paid podcast, it would bring somebody else instead of me because I stutter too much. Like it would make no sense, right? But yeah, thank you so much, John. We wish you nothing but the best of luck. We're actually looking forward to all the books that are coming up, and especially we could tell from when you're talking about them the passion and already the story itself, which is beautiful. So you definitely have that skill of storytelling. Uh,
Absolutely.
and what's it
Thank
called?
you.
So and it shows, right? So that's kind of why like we're definitely gonna be uh big fans of yours. So yeah, so just letting you know you got 3 new fans uh for as of now, because there's more people that we are sharing these books with. And once again, like it's very nice that it's a local person. It's a talented local person that tells stories that a lot of people can relate to. So it is beautiful, and you know, we just want to thank you. And real quick, for all those people that want to follow you, want to buy your stuff, where could they go?
So avinacomics.com has all of our comics in physical and digital copy. So if you want to check out the digital first, you can download them and you'll get a PDF emailed right to you. If you want a physical copy, you can even put like notes for me to sign it to specific people, stuff like that, and I'll do it. And at conventions, we're actually doing variants. So like that Jimena poster, we have a convention exclusive variant, and we're going to be at Fan Expo in Chicago this year. We have 2 tables.
Oh, nice.
That
Yeah,
is-
we're gonna.
I was
It's gonna
actually
be
there
a good
last
show.
year. I was planning on being there this year, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, no. If you guys stop by the table, we'll have T-shirts, so you guys get a T-shirt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No, I did want to show this now. Once again, only the people that watch it on Spotify or on YouTube will be
YouTube.
able to see this. So that's kind of why I was like, you know what? Let's have John say for those people that do not watch it or do not see it on those platforms, and they may see it somewhere else. But yeah, it was definitely a treat. Thank you so much, John. We just want to let you know this is your house. You're welcome anytime. You're welcome to come join us, talk about anything, about nothing. You're anything. This is your house, John.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys. This is a lot of fun.
No
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, hold on. There you go.
You're getting it. You're getting it.
Yes, I am. Make sure you join us as we stream on Twitch and try to raise money for Laurie Children's Hospital Chicago. All links are in their website. We are partnering with Extra Life to raise money for Laurie Children's Hospital. So far, if we get to 5K, we're gonna shave our head. I have some emotions when it comes to that. I don't want to shave my head, but I will do it for this cause.
And it
But
was
I-
your idea. So
Yeah,
you're
and
doing
It was my idea,
it.
and
You're doing
I'm scared now of it, right?
it.
For everybody else, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. All platforms, like the links in our website, just geekstudios.com. Everything's there. Just go there. I'm not about to be like here right there. Just go to the website. Everything's there. One stop shop. Perfect. But yeah, we want to thank you, John, for coming, and for everybody else, we will see you guys on the next episode.
Until next time, gang.
Take care.